Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr. are coming up on contract seasons. And with the Indianapolis Colts looking to extend both of their young superstars, what exactly would those extensions look like? And can a deal get done to keep those two in Indy? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here live once again with my co-host and fellow writer at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, it's been almost a week now since I've seen you live here on the show. We did have a show last Thursday night. We weren't live because the wife and I were a little bit busy, but hey, it's great to be back with all of you guys here tonight. Drake, how you doing, brother? How was your weekend?
I'm doing fantastic, and my weekend was very nice. Of course, in Indiana, anyway, it was just pristine weather, so I got outside and just kind of caught some sports over the weekend and relaxed. And so I'm raring and ready to talk some more Indianapolis Colts. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Awesome. You'll love to see it. Yeah, I myself had a golf outing this weekend. It was fun hitting the links. It was for the kids, so it's always good to golf for a good cause. Lots of adult beverages were enjoyed. Got to watch a NASCAR race this weekend. So let's talk. It's time to talk some more Indianapolis Colts football. Logan Schmidt is here. Good to see you, buddy. Patrick, as always, nice to see you. We got Wyatt Law here live. He says, "You don't let your prized rookie quarterback elite helper slip away. Ballard and Mike Bloom have both built into their cap plan. That's what we're going to talk about exactly tonight. John Gilbert is here. I already talked to Stats Matt. He's not going to join us. His daughter has a softball game tonight. So Stats Matt, you're letting us down. You're letting us down, but we appreciate it. CJ is here as well. Good to see you, buddy. Always enjoy when you drop by. And if you haven't done so already, guys, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of this episode, go ahead and follow us on all the things. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, and we've got new content coming out all the time. And then if you can't catch us live or you can't watch us on YouTube, all the links to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, they're in the description below. Go ahead and give us a 5-star rating if you enjoy us, because we enjoy all of you joining along, listening, all of your support. But Drake, I've talked enough. The people don't want to hear me blab. Let's dive right into it. So Jonathan Taylor or Michael Pittman Jr., the Colts' 2 second-round draft picks in the 2020 NFL Draft. Both of those guys are entering their 4th year in the league. Both have become very vital pieces to the success of the Indianapolis Colts offense, and both are up for contract extensions. This is the final year of their rookie deals, and we're going to talk about it tonight because they're for one of the guys, for both of them, there has been some debate of what their value is and what type of contracts the Colts should give out to these guys. So it's going to be interesting to kind of dive into this, but I think we can all agree that both of these guys are running back one and wide receiver one for the Colts, and they're essential to what the Colts want to do on offense moving forward.
Oh yeah, and I mean, all you have to do is look as recent as 2021 when Carson Wentz was the quarterback. I mean, Michael Pittman dominated the passing game. Jonathan Taylor dominated the running game, and in multiple ways was the entire offense that set up Michael Pittman. So these two guys gave the Colts their best statistical year recently that we can remember. And last season, obviously Taylor was hurt, but man, Michael Pittman really shouldered a lot of the load for that offense that just looked so anemic. So absolutely, both these guys need to be talked about for contract extensions.
Good to see Sarah in here as well. And if you guys have a question tonight on any of these topics, go ahead and make sure to throw in a super chat, and we'll be sure to answer that question as soon as it pops up. As always, we really thank you guys for the support. So let's dive into it. Let's dive into to the number one running back here for the Indianapolis Colts, and when healthy, a lot of people think the number one running back in the entire NFL in Jonathan Taylor. And I want to go over some of his numbers here so we can kind of get a full grasp of really what is at stake here. So over 3 years with the Colts, Jonathan Taylor has amassed 3,841 rushing yards. That equates out to about 5.1 yards per carry. 33 rushing touchdowns to go along with that. And then in the passing game, he's racked up 104 catches, 802 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns. And that's in 3 seasons here. And then when we're kind of gauging a ballpark really to kind of project what a contract might look like here, Jonathan Taylor, according to Spotrac, his market value for Jonathan Taylor is a 4-year deal worth $52.3 million. That would be on an annual basis about $13 million per year, which would make Jonathan Taylor the third highest paid running back when you're talking about as far as annual per year salary. So big chunk of money for a running back, and there's plenty of debate out there about whether you should or shouldn't pay a running back here. But before we dive into all that, let's talk about the pros of Jonathan Taylor. Drake, what do you think, or why do you think Jonathan Taylor would be deserving of a type of contract like this, as far as what he's done, not only what he's done in the past, but what you think he could do in the future?
Well, I think that one of the main reasons that he's played himself into a contract is going back to his rookie season. Okay, you're talking about a team that had arguably the most, even more immobile than Matt Ryan. They had Phillip Rivers, and he still chalked up 1,169 rushing yards for 11 rushing touchdowns. The guy played absolutely electric right out of the gate, and then he catapulted to honors, in 2021. He was, without question, the best running back in the NFL. And, last season was just such a brutal year for his health, unfortunately, and just for the entire team. Even if he stays healthy, I still think that he was averaging about 78 rushing yards a game. So you're probably looking at about 1,300 rushing yards again. That's a fantastic year, arguably. So I think that he's definitely played himself into extension, because he's been the entire offense, for the past couple of seasons. And when he was healthy, I remember the very first game, he had like 31 carries for 169 yards week 1. So that's what they want to do. They want to put the offense in this guy's hands. So yeah, I think with all those things considered, just right on the surface of it all, he deserves an extension for sure.
Yeah, and when you're talking about what Jonathan Taylor means to this offense as well, teams just have to, when Jonathan Taylor is out there and fully healthy, teams have to play the Colts differently when Jonathan Taylor is out there. You can't just, he's not any normal running back. You have to pay attention to him on every single play. Otherwise, with that 4.3 speed that Jonathan Taylor has, there's a chance anytime he touches the ball, he can take it to the house. We saw that multiple times throughout the 2021 season. Jonathan Taylor himself basically willed this team to 9 wins. Carson Wentz, yeah, he started out okay, but as the season went along, this was Jonathan Taylor's team. And the offense was built around Jonathan Taylor. And even when everyone in the building knew that JT was going to get the ball, the New England Patriots game kind of really stands out at Lucas Oil Stadium. He still ripped off a 60, 70-yard run to win that game. So when a healthy Jonathan Taylor is it's so vital for this offense. And when I get back to kind of when you're thinking about Jonathan Taylor with Anthony Richardson, that's what really excites me, because the way this Colts offense is moving, where you're looking towards a more mobile quarterback to pair with a superstar running back in Jonathan Taylor. It's like pick your poison in that regard. Especially when you're talking about the play action game, the read option game, RPOs. It's like, is the ball going to be handed off to Taylor? Is Anthony Richardson going to keep it? It makes things just so so much more difficult for a defense. And we talked about this, I think it was last Monday when we had Zach Hicks on the show about how this offense is going to look with Anthony Richardson. A lot of that is with Jonathan Taylor being able to take that pressure off of Anthony Richardson and just getting another superstar level playmaker around Anthony Richardson that he could rely on. It's going to help this rookie quarterback, and then at not only rookie, but as he grows in year 2 and year 3 and so on, it's just going to be so vital to his development to be able to lean on a player of Jonathan Taylor's caliber and really open things up for this Shane Steichen offense. And it's just I keep coming back to this quote by Chris Ballard that it doesn't matter what position. If you have one of the best players at that position, or you have an elite talent at that position, you pay him what he's worth, and you don't let those guys go. So, and that's kind of where I think the Colts are standing with Jonathan Taylor. Is yes, it's probably not the best team building standpoint as far as what the modern day teams might do to pay big money to a running back. But this just isn't just any other running back. This is Jonathan Taylor. I know a lot of people have forgotten how good he can be because of how his injuries piled up last year. But this guy's just a year removed from 1,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, and absolutely dominating the NFL on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and how one off year can make people forget.
Right.
It's just how ridiculously good a player is and can be. And he was arguably, on an upswing. So I like what you said about Anthony Richardson, because at the end of the day, that's one of the other reasons that this is a pro, is because you get to do two things by locking him down for 4 or 5 years, whatever. Number one is you get to get him in his prime years. You're getting him prime Jonathan Taylor. The next 4 or 5 years right now and on are going to be the best years of Jonathan Taylor's career. They just will. Historically, between like 25 and like 28, 29, that's usually when running backs, when they're stars, I think that's when they're really hitting the stride and really putting up numbers. So you get him during those years. And number two, like you said, he gets to mesh with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is in one of the reasons that he's in the perfect situation, and this was the best fit for him. Yes, of course, Steichen's here. There's, Jim Bob Cooter. There's, Cam Turner. There's, big receivers who can get open downfield. Okay. But one of the biggest reasons, if not like 75% of the pie, is because Jonathan Taylor's in the backfield. All right. That's just the truth. That's one of the biggest reasons why this is such a good fit for Anthony Richardson, is because the defenses are going to be like, oh my goodness, it's either Jonathan Taylor that's going to get this ball on this RPO. Michael Pittman might be over the top, or for the love of God, you're going to have a 6'4", 245-pound Cadillac just like driving full bore down the field. So that is why the offense is so dangerous. Nothing against anyone else, even Anthony Richardson, but man, Jonathan Taylor, he's the star. He's the centerpiece of this whole thing still.
Right. And he will be until Anthony Richardson is ready to take over. But I'm very excited to see how Shane Steichen really utilizes Jonathan Taylor, especially in that RPO game, and just how these linebackers, if they have to wait, just take an extra half second or even a second to wonder whether Anthony Richardson's keeping the ball or not. A lot of times that's all Jonathan Taylor needs to break open a big gain. So I just think that extra threat is going to be huge for Jonathan Taylor and this offense as a whole. Patrick Wire, just with a huge super chat, buddy. We really do appreciate all your support. You're one of our biggest fans, and we're one of the biggest fans of you for all of your support. So Patrick says, keep JT for sure. Michael Pittman Jr. is solid, but a lot depends on the outcome of the season. If they have a bad one, they could be in position to get Harrison Jr. or Emeka Egbuka, who could both be better wide receiver ones. Johnny Wilson is also an option there. So yes, the Colts do have some options, because it looks like this wide receiver class that's upcoming in the 2024 NFL draft is going to be a very good one. I think there's quite a few options there at the top of the draft class that could be very appealing options for the Colts, especially the one right there with Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think the Colts are going to have to be in the area of the top 5 pick in order to get a talent like Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe even top 3, if we're being realistic here. So can the Colts really bet on that happening? I don't think the Colts plan on picking in the top 5 once again. We'll have to see, but I think I'm not even sure if it really matters if Michael Pittman Jr. is there, and the Colts do sign him. I mean, the Colts still could take Marvin Harrison Jr., and then you pair a Marvin Harrison Jr. who could play kind of that Z wide receiver with Michael Pittman Jr. And then you're talking about maybe Alec Pierce being the odd man out. So we'll have to see there. But Patrick, we really appreciate the super chat, buddy. As always, you're an absolute rock star. But Drake, we've talked about the pros of Jonathan Taylor, but obviously there are some, I don't know if I call them cons, but they're concerns. There's a reason why people are so weary about paying a running back. It's because lately we've seen when big deals go out to running backs, it hasn't paid off recently. I mean, we've seen once Ezekiel Elliott got a huge contract with the Cowboys, he didn't live up to it. The Vikings are trying to move off of Dalvin Cook after signing him to a big deal. So there definitely are situations where it's counterintuitive, and it really will hurt your team as far as being able to really move forward. And I think that's just for the simple fact that in today's NFL, really the running back position isn't as valued as it once was, because we've seen teams go out there and get like the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. They got Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round, and he was their leading rusher and went out there and had a big Super Bowl. So when running backs are so readily available like that, it can give you some pause of should we play or should we pay big money to a position that honestly you can try. It's more easy to find a replacement at the running back position.
Yeah, and I that's exactly what I had in my notes, is that they're really no longer valued at the top tier money that they once were, like back in the Adrian Peterson days. I mean, you'd value a guy like him at the other. I mean, he'd probably be potentially one of the top 10 paid guys in the NFL. So that's no longer the case. And a lot of people will say that it's not smart long term to extend a running back with the wear and tear that they do absorb. And this is just any running back, but you're talking about a guy who is the centerpiece of the offense and is going to need to continue to stay healthy for the offense, for both the offense to continue to operate efficiently and for him to continue to put up those numbers that are worthy of the extension that he was given. Like you said, Dalvin Cook struggles with injuries. They're starting to pile up, and he's not putting up the numbers that, they were thinking he might. And now you got Alexander Madison, who legitimately looks kind of like almost a clone the way he plays of Dalvin Cook. Could he get an opportunity? Could another guy get an opportunity? All because the wear and tear is starting to add up. And I will say it could impede. I mean, it's between what? It would be between like 12.5, 16 million. I think that'd be the highest paid running back.
Highest paid yeah, exactly. Christian McCaffrey is paid on annual average about 16 million per year.
Yeah, so that's not like hardcore money, but it could impede on positions that might be valued higher. Positions on the interior offensive line, pass rushers, cornerbacks. Positions where you're like, okay, we got to start running back here that's got some wear and tear, but we could plug and play 2 guys in this Steichen system that could operate almost like a Jonathan Taylor, just 2 of them, together, and they're cheaper. I mean, it's a business before it's a sport. So I think that those things definitely should be considered. And also coming off of the injury, right off of that injury, that also plays into it. If this had happened in 21 and then he puts up 21's numbers last year, it's a lot more So I think all those things play into it.
Right. Okay, now it comes for the big question. So currently, Jonathan Taylor is in the process of switching agents, so he will have new representation for these contract negotiations that are bound to get started here soon, continue into the summer. The Colts typically like to get those deals done before the start of the season, so they aren't really distractions going that throughout the year. But Drake, should the Colts extend Jonathan Taylor? And if they do, what value or what kind of numbers do you think that contract should reflect?
You know, I'll go back to what I said earlier. One of the biggest reasons that this is such a damn good fit for Anthony Richardson is because of Jonathan Taylor. I'm talking 3/4 to 4/5 of the pie. All right, no offense to anyone else. So it's a must. I think it's an absolute must. And I did something different. I said the low end and the high end. So I think the low end, you might. I mean, I don't think this will ever happen, but 4 years, 50 million, 12.5 mil a year.
Mhm.
And then I think the high end would be like 4 years, 58 million, so 14.5 mil a year. But I think it'll be between that. But yeah, absolutely, you got to extend him.
Yeah, I think the Colts should extend Jonathan Taylor, and I think they will. I really don't think this is up for too much of a debate, if I'm being honest. Everything I've heard coming out of the Colts organization is that they want to get a long-term deal done with Jonathan Taylor as well. I think when you're looking at kind of the figures. I know I quoted Spotrac earlier saying 4 years, 52.3 million, which is about 13 million annually. I do think that it's going to be close to your high end, Drake. I think about 4 years, 58 to 60 million when you're talking about 14.5 million per year. But here's where the Colts have an advantage that a lot of other teams that are paying running backs, they don't, because Anthony Richardson is going to be on a rookie contract, and the Colts are going to have that low cap hit for their quarterback position for at least the next 4 years. So that basically is the length of that second contract for Jonathan Taylor. This is why getting a young quarterback in the building and trying to surround him with superstars early, it's why we've seen a lot of teams have success with this model recently, because you can pay these guys good money. You can pay your superstars good money because your quarterback is so cheap. And there's different ways that the Colts could do this as well, as far as structuring the deal for Jonathan Taylor. I'm sure with this contract, it's going to be front loaded. They're going to want to get most of that money out of the way within the first couple seasons, just in case if the wear and tear on Jonathan Taylor's body starts to show by year 3, year 4, they're not going to be hamstrung and catch themselves trapped into a major contract for an injury ridden running back that's closing in on the age of 28 to 30. You know what I'm saying? So I do think that this will get done, whether it gets done before training camp, whether it gets done during training camp. I have a feeling it will get done before the season gets started, especially with how Jonathan Taylor wants to just focus on ball. It's not going to be something that really lingers too much. But as we've been saying, Chris Ballard said it doesn't matter the position. If you have a premium player you're going to pay him what he's worth. And Chris Ballard has always been about paying his own. So I think that's what we're going to see with Jonathan Taylor. Lock him up on a 4-year deal to keep in line with how Anthony Richardson is on his rookie deal. Keep it so it's lined up with that cheap contract, and then you go from there. And I'm sure it'll be front loaded, like I said, just to make sure that as he gets older, kind of so the Colts aren't necessarily trapped if they do need to get out of that contract. But I fully expect Jonathan Taylor to sign a pretty big second contract. I think he's going to be the highest paid running back in the NFL. I don't know about that, but I think he's going to be up there, either number 2, number 3, somewhere around there when all is said and done. But I think Jonathan Taylor is too crucial to what the Colts want to do on offense for them to just let him walk. And I think everybody in that building shares the same opinion. But let's move along to another guy in that 2020 draft class, wide receiver one for the Indianapolis Colts. And this one has been kind of up for debate, because Michael Pittman Jr. A lot of people aren't sure if he is a true wide receiver one. So again, let's talk about some of the numbers that Pittman has had over the last 3 seasons. 227 catches, 2,510 yards, averages out to about 11.1 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns in 3 seasons with 3 different starting quarterbacks. So definitely Pittman hasn't been able to really get the consistency of the man throwing him the football that really a lot of other receivers are afforded to them, so that way they can take off in their careers. So when again, this is the market value according to Sport Track, 4 years, $73.7 million, and that may seem like it's a big number when you break it all down, averages out to about 18.4 million per year, which would make Michael Pittman only the 17th highest paid wide receiver. Averages out to about what Deontay Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers is making on a year-to-year basis, and Christian Kirk with the Jacksonville Jaguars, just a little bit more than him. But Drake, first, like what do you think? Like, what are some of the things that Michael Pittman Jr. has shown you over these 3 seasons that say he is deserving of a contract extension with the Indianapolis Colts?
I think that what he's shown me is that he has obviously been able to produce with, like you said, just a horrendous quarterback situation when you're starting out your career. It's one thing when you're like well established and you know how the ins and outs of things, but when you're just a rookie walking into the NFL and you're walking into your 3rd season and you now have 3 starting quarterbacks in the same year, adding up to 5 in your first 3 years, and you've been able to put up what Michael Pittman has, it looks like, hey, this guy really, really needs to get an extension. Now, there needs to be some things put into this. I do think that there hasn't really been a close receiver 2 either. Okay. Like Michael Pittman's gone out there ever since 2021, really, and just completely dominated the targets. He's dominated the receiving game. I also think that, again, he gets to one of the reasons it's really good to extend him is he gets to mesh with Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. You've got a guy who is going to maximize his strengths, which again is using that big frame to make very contested catches. Not saying he can't get open, but he's not like this screen guy. That's not what he's supposed to be used for. So I think he's going to be used properly. So there's a lot of reasons why you want him on the team. And plus, you've also got Josh Downs. You've also got Alec Pierce hitting that 2nd year. You've got a new guy like Isaiah McKenzie. You don't want Michael Pittman focusing on, am I going to stay here? Am I going to stay here? You need to ink him up to a contract. And to people that were curious, that comparison you made putting those 2 players, Deontay Johnson and Christian Kirk, I personally think Michael Pittman's worth more than whatever they're worth, honestly, just because of the way that he's dominated the targets, dominated the receiving game with a very interesting quarterback situation. So those are just a couple of reasons.
I want to give a shout out to Nathan here. Good to see you, buddy. And I love this comment by Wyatt Law. Pitt's also a slobber knocker of a blocker. Anytime Wyatt Law brings out a slobber knocker, I got to throw it up on the screen. That's just a hell of a word. But it's Michael Pittman Jr. I think is very underrated. To Colts fans, I know a lot of Colts fans don't think he's a wide receiver 1, but I think you really have to look at the situation with Michael Pittman Jr. and it's because the Colts have been spoiled with Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, T.Y. Hilton, but you also got to think of the guys that were throwing them the football. I mean, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, 2 of the greatest quarterbacks that we've ever seen. And when you don't have a good someone throwing you the football, someone that's reliable throwing you the football on a regular basis, I mean, you're not going to be able to show your true potential. I mean, is Michael Pittman Jr. a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL? No, I don't think any of us would say that. But when you're looking at his body of work, I think Michael Pittman is definitely a wide receiver 1 in this league. And I found this interesting when I was doing some research before the show here. I wanted to look up Michael Pittman Jr.'s stats from last year, just to kind of give everybody an idea of kind of give a maybe a little bit of a comparison. So Michael Pittman Jr. last year, when he had Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, and Sam Ellinger throwing him the football, Pittman had 99 catches for 925 yards and 4 touchdowns. So obviously not the best year, but I wouldn't say a terrible year either. Now I'm going to show you the stats for a guy that we all think could potentially should be in the Hall of Fame, and Reggie Wayne. So I'm going to go to his stats in the year 2011 when Peyton Manning missed the entire season. And you had guys like Kerry Collins, Curtis Painter, Dan Orlovsky throwing Reggie Wayne the football. In 2011, Reggie Wayne had 75 catches for 960 yards and 4 touchdowns. About the same stats Michael Pittman did this past season. Obviously, Reggie Wayne did it a lot longer and did it at a very high level, but my point is when you're kind of comparing Michael Pittman and what he's been able to do, is it really fair to say that he's gotten a fair shot considering the constant turnover that the Colts have seen at the quarterback position? Have we really gotten to see what Michael Pittman is actually capable of when he can form a connection with the same quarterback year after year after year, and the offense is kind of built around him? We haven't seen that yet. And I don't think it's really fair to say that Michael Pittman shouldn't be paid that because he hasn't proven that he can do it. Well, the Colts haven't given him a quarterback that can help improve that either. So when you flip those things around, and now the Colts have an Anthony Richardson who they can pair with Pittman for years to come. And if you can sign a number 1 wide receiver to around $18 million a year, when Tyreek Hill and the top 5 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL are getting $30 million a year, that's a steal. That's really a steal. And then you can use that money to go out and really sign other bits and pieces. And of course, we got a super chat from Logan Schmidt, who's just going to put all of our brains into a twister here. Logan, man. I really appreciate it. But Logan's question is, you only get one. Which would you guys sign, Michael Pittman Jr. or Jonathan Taylor? Drake, I'm going to let you go first on this one. Who you signing if it comes down to it? Taylor or Pittman?
Dang it, Logan. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you for the super chat. It's a very tough question, but a fun question.
Hey, it is a tough one. I go, oh man, with what Anthony Richardson provides, I'd go Jonathan Taylor, just because of what he provides for Anthony Richardson's strengths. I think that you could, in that case, replace Michael Pittman as a downfield threat. You could potentially get somebody who's, that slot threat like Josh Downs or another receiver down the road. But in most cases, though, you'd say Michael Pittman. You really would. If you had more of a Joe Burrow type quarterback, or let's say they drafted CJ Stroud, I think Michael Pittman is the higher priority. But with Richardson, it's got to be Taylor.
I think it has to be Taylor. Again, you've got an elite player at a position. You got to sign that elite player. You can't let those types of talents walk out of the building. Now, do I think it's closer than a lot of people think? Absolutely. And I would make the case for either one, to be honest with you. But I just think with Jonathan Taylor, when healthy, being one of the best running backs in the NFL, and the way he can morph this offense and what the Colts could do with him and Anthony Richardson in the running game, I think you would have to lean towards Jonathan Taylor. Logan, thanks for the question, buddy. We really appreciate it. Appreciate you always coming on and supporting us and joining us for these live episodes. You're one of the real ones, buddy. But Drake, and then I kind of, as we get back to Michael Pittman Jr. here, and I talked about really getting that chance. I mean, I think another big piece to this puzzle, again, I'm going back to Shane Steichen. Whenever Shane Steichen has talked about what this offense is going to look like and the players he has, I mean, he always talks about Michael Pittman Jr. And from behind the scenes, I mean, he is super high on Michael Pittman Jr. He fully believes that Pittman can be the Colts version of or what AJ Brown was on the Philadelphia Eagles last year, a big, strong wide receiver that can handle things over the middle, be that traditional X wide receiver that can go out, get you a first down whenever you need it, and also really contribute in the red zone. And Shane Steichen, I've got this on really good authority, is super high on what Michael Pittman can achieve in this offense. And that's when you're talking about extensions and with what Shane Steichen wants to mold this team into, that's not going to be that, like, that's a big deal. That's going to mean a lot in these negotiations as far as what Ballard and company try to do to get this thing over the finish line.
Yeah, and there was one more thing that I noticed here is a reason that he could argue himself into an extension, or that we could argue in this case for the pros. So you got 2020 as a rookie with Phillip Rivers, 61 targets, 40 receptions, 503 yards. Then you have 2021 with Carson Wentz, who was erratic at best sometimes. 129 targets, 88 catches, 1,082 receiving yards, and the long was 57. Now, last year, you got to keep in mind, ball wasn't thrown down the field, hardly at all. Horrifically inaccurate quarterback play and constant rotations at quarterback. Still had career bests, 141 targets, 99 catches, which is 11 more than last year. And he's still got 925 yards, but the long was only 28 yards. Okay, that really speaks to me that this guy still went out there and almost got 100 catches, almost got 1,000 yards on a team that had not even really a close second, the worst quarterback situation going on and coaching situation.
Right. So, and there are some cons, I mean, or concerns. Like, I hate calling these cons, but like, I mean, has Michael Pittman, do you want to really shell out that big money for a guy that hasn't yet really produced at a top wide receiver level? Do you really want to be hamstrung to that? Do you think he can get to that level as far as being a wide receiver one that can really lead your team? But Drake, what are some of the concerns that you might have or you might bring up as far as paying a big money extension to Michael Pittman Jr.?
I think kind of similar to Jonathan Taylor. I mean, and his is going to be greater. It could impede signings of positions where they do need a little bit more. Now, luckily, right now, wide receivers, one of the biggest needs for the Colts. If should Michael Pittman not even be in the equation, so I do think that he's secure in that regard. But I do think that it could put pressure, if it's too much money, and it's also not guaranteed that a fresh quarterback is going to mesh with him. And I think one thing I didn't even put in my notes is that there really hasn't been since 2021 any option that could rival his targets. Okay. Like, there hasn't been someone that can take away those targets. And so his numbers could be, and I hate to make this argument because I love Michael Pittman Jr., but they could be inflated a little bit. Now, has he taken advantage of those numerous targets where he's the only guy to throw the ball to at times? Yeah, he has, but he's also been pretty much the only receiving option since 2021, so the past couple seasons. So I think that those are a couple of things. I will say it was pretty hard to pry out some negatives here, but I think those would be a couple concerns.
Right. And I think, like I said, I think Pittman gets a bad rap just because he isn't going out there and putting up Jamar Chase's numbers. But here's the thing, Jamar Chase there's only one Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase also has Joe Burrow throwing him the football.
And T. Higgins taking away coverage.
Exactly. T. Higgins is another good wide receiver. And I think T. Higgins, you can probably compare the skill set of Pittman and T. Higgins, and they're probably pretty similar if we're being objective about all of this, and we really sit down and look what T. Higgins could do if Jamar Chase wasn't on the other side of him in that offense. I think you're looking at about the same things that as what Michael Pittman could do. So I really think that when it comes down to it, I know a lot of people say, well, Pittman doesn't take over games. There's only about 5 wide receivers in the NFL that can take over games. And I'm not saying go out and pay Michael Pittman Jr. $30 million a year. I don't think Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be asking for $30 million a year. But do I think Michael Pittman Jr. is worth close to $20 million a year because of the wide receiver market? Absolutely, I do. Because when you're talking about guys like Deontay Johnson and Christian Kirk, and if I'm going up with those two and saying which of those two would I rather have or Michael Pittman, I'm going to take Michael Pittman Jr. not only for what he can do as a pass catching option, but also what he can do as a blocker. And here we go with another super chat from Patrick. Patrick, you're the GOAT, brother. You really are
legend over here,
an absolute legend. We really appreciate it. Patrick says, almost see the Michael Pittman Jr. situation like the Campbell one from this year. Could the Colts have re-signed him? Sure, but has he truly produced? Maybe he needs to go elsewhere to prove it. And Patrick, I go against that a little bit, just because I think when you looked at these Colts offenses, I mean, he is the only wide receiver that has produced. I mean, he's put up close to 1,000 yards, close to 100 catches. Does he score 10 touchdowns a year? No, but look at the quarterbacks that are throwing in the football. I mean, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, Sam Ehlinger. I mean, you're not going to have a terrible quarterbacks giving it to wide receivers and them racking up a bunch of touchdowns every year. Andre Johnson, for as good as he was playing with all those quarterbacks in Houston, Andre Johnson, when you look at his career touchdown numbers, I mean, he's not in the top 10 of touchdowns. I don't think he has over 100 touchdowns to his career, but you would still say that Andre Johnson is a really good wide receiver. Am I comparing Michael Pittman to Andre Johnson? No. But at the same time, I think it really means something when you're talking about wide receivers, and that's why I brought up Reggie Wayne's stats from 2011 when the Colts had such a bad quarterback situation then. Quarterback really matters, and you have to look at that as far as when you're talking about if Michael Pittman or whoever wide receiver you're talking about has produced. Quarterback matters in those situations.
Yeah, and one of the things about Andre Johnson that's pretty interesting is I know that he's not a household name, but Matt Schaub, okay, from 2008 to 2012, when he was still a Pro Bowl quarterback, by the way, was tossing Andre Johnson that football during some of Andre Johnson's best and most productive seasons. All right, so even Andre Johnson had a little bit of consistency. A guy in Houston who didn't and still produced was DeAndre Hopkins. All right, so it's like it's so hard to like gauge Michael Pittman right now, but man, I truly do have to say, in response to Patrick's super chat, which again, thank you so much, Patrick, for another one.
Absolutely.
But when you look at three quarterbacks that you got Matt Ryan, who just wasn't meshing with the offense, couldn't move, and just looked way too far behind in speed. Then you switch to Sam Ehlinger, who might not have even been entirely ready to start. He kind of looked like he had the mentality to be ready, but not the release, not the physical attributes just yet, reaction time. And then you have Nick Foles, who I don't know what in the ever-loving hell happened to Nick Foles last season. 4 picks with no touchdowns. And so it's like you take that, you have 99 catches most of your career, you have the most targets of your career, and you still can somehow scratch away a halfway decent season like that. I mean, man, you give him some consistency and an offensive-minded guy like Steichen, it could really be interesting to see how much he produces. It could be astronomical for all we know.
And when you're looking at Christian Kirk too, I mean, the guy that we've been talking about as well. I mean, before Christian Kirk signed that big contract with Jacksonville, here's where his stats in 2021 with Arizona. 77 catches for 982 yards and 5 touchdowns. Before that, Christian Kirk hadn't had a season where he had over 68 catches and 709 yards. So it's not like Christian Kirk was exactly balling out for the Arizona Cardinals either before he received a good contract. But hey, he received that contract. He went to a place where they had a good quarterback that he could link up with in Trevor Lawrence. And look, he had 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, and that Christian Kirk signing is looking like it's going to be a good one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Patrick, love the question, buddy. Love to debate on these. So we really appreciate you, man. Keep them coming. As always, like we said, absolute legend, and we appreciate it every time you're able to join us. We have another super chat here from my father, with a nice super chat. Darwin Moore, really appreciate it, but glad you're able to watch, because I know sometimes my dad's a truck driver and he has to go in super early in the morning, isn't able to watch us here live. Thanks a lot, Dad. Hope that you and Mom and my brother Adam are enjoying the show as always. Patrick with another one, also disclaimer. I'm not down on Michael Pittman Jr. at all. I really like him. Just want to see his potential unleashed with Anthony Richardson before the contract is signed. And hey, that might be a catch-22 situation, though, Patrick, when you're talking about that. If Michael Pittman Jr. goes out there and has a huge year where he has 100 catches, 1,200 yards, and 8 to 9 touchdowns, then his price tag is probably going to go up, and he might want to test the open market. And then you're not paying him $18 million a year. You're looking at paying him $23 to $24 million a year. So it's a little bit of, you kind of want to lock him up before he goes out there and starts having those big seasons. But it is interesting, and I think Michael Pittman does have that in him. So again, Patrick, we really appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
As always. So Drake, let's kind of wrap up the Michael Pittman talk here. Should the Colts extend Pittman Jr.? And if so, what value are you placing on that contract?
I think absolutely. I think this one in some ways is even maybe more of a no-brainer, just because they don't really have any. I'm not saying they don't have any depth outside of Michael Pittman, but you want him to stay, because he has been your bona fide number one receiver for the past 2 seasons, and he could be hitting his true stride, and he's going to be doing it with a guy like Steichen and a guy who's going to throw him the ball deep and is going to rely on him like Anthony Richardson. I think the low end is 4 years. This is not going to happen, but 4 years, $60 million. That's $15 million a year. I think way more realistic though. If we're talking either low or high end, it's going to be the high end, which I actually put 5 years, $95 million with $19 million a year.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm going to go just a little bit lower than that. I really like where Sport Track has that value for Michael Pittman. 4 years, probably $73 to $74 million. As far as the length of the contract, about 18. Drake, you went up to about 19 million annually. I had like 18.5 around there, because I really think the Colts are going to be able to get a deal done in that. Michael Pittman Jr. just does not seem like the type of player to me is going to hold out for big time money. He already has talked about it in the offseason that he doesn't worry about any of that. That's what he pays his agent for. He's going to let his agent take care of all of that as well. So I really think that the Colts are going to be able, to come to a common ground with Michael Pittman Jr. and try to make it so he does get wide receiver one money, but he is not absolutely breaking the bank. And I think 19 million, that's a very acceptable, fair deal for Michael Pittman Jr. And you guys, again, think about it. The wide receiver market is just going to continue climbing. So if Michael Pittman Jr. does go out there and prove that he can be a bona fide number one wide receiver, really connects with Anthony Richardson, that's going to look like a really good deal for the Indianapolis Colts towards the end of that contract, because he's going to go out there and he's putting up those numbers and helping this Colts offense, making 18 to 19 million a year, when some of the top wide receivers in the NFL are over $30 million here within the coming years. So that would be a steal of a deal for the Indianapolis Colts there. So Drake and I both think that Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr. should be extended, and we think it will get done. And I really do have confidence that both of those guys are going to be in the horseshoe long term. I know the Colts want to get both of those deals done, and they would like to get those done before the season begins in September. We'll have to see what happens there if they're able to, but as of right now, I'm pretty confident both those guys will be with the Colts long term. So let's move it along to the latest Colts news and rumors before we get you guys out of here. And we're going to start with something that came up over the weekend with Jim Irsay. Of course, good old Jimmy.
Good old Jimmy. Jimmy from the Colts, baby.
Good old Jimmy from the Colts starting some trouble. But Jim Irsay this weekend came up with his top 5 best or top 5 football players of all time this weekend, and it caused quite a stir on Twitter. So I wasn't able to get this beforehand, but I'll just read the tweet off to you guys. Jim Irsay said, on my list of top 5 greatest NFL players of all time in our 103-year history, I have the top 5 as number 1, Jim Brown, who did pass away last week, legendary running back for the Cleveland Browns. So rest in peace to Jim Brown. Number 2, Tom Brady. Number 3, John Elway. Number 4, Deacon Jones, and number 5, Reggie White. So no Peyton Manning on that list. And Drake, were you surprised about that? Definitely made me raise an eyebrow, and I know a lot of Colts fans got into a tizzy about that.
You know, first off, yes, I actually was quite surprised that he wasn't like number 2, maybe right behind Tom Brady, just to solidify that rivalry. And in fact, you took his former general manager in John Elway and put him pretty much in the same spot you'd expect Peyton to maybe be. And you put Deacon Jones and Reggie White, which, hey, one of them, they're both bruisers at defensive end back in the day. So, I mean, the list is awesome. Don't get me wrong. A lot of great players, but holy cow, man. Yeah, that was interesting. And it makes you wonder what the heck is going on, man.
Irsay went on to tweet, no doubt, Peyton, Barry Sanders, and Jerry Rice are in my top 10. It's just that Elway didn't have the greatest offensive players around him till the end when he won 2 Super Bowls in a row, and his feet were remarkable, from baseball talents and then with a football emoji right there afterwards. But yeah, I mean, Logan Schmidt says John Elway was kind of buns. That's a funny. And Logan, he also says agree with 5, and that's about it. But yeah, I mean, it was just very strange because, I mean, Peyton Manning, you would think that Jim Irsay would put Peyton Manning in there, because without Peyton Manning, we don't know if Jim Irsay still owns the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts probably aren't in Indianapolis. We're probably talking about the Colts being out in Los Angeles at this point, or somewhere out on the West Coast. But that one was just a little bit strange, and I don't know. Maybe I'll get bored this summer and I'll dive into some advanced analytics about why I believe Peyton Manning is a better quarterback than old TB12. And I'm surprised Tom Brady hasn't jumped into the chat to defend himself. But yeah. I digress. It was just something that came up over the weekend. Something else that came up was that Andrew Luck and the Washington Commanders tampering case has been closed. It was found that the Commanders did not reach out to Andrew Luck or any of his representation. So that was a fake report by ESPN, go figure, and one that was ill-sourced. So all that was put to bed. Nothing to worry about there. And there he is. That's stupid Tom Brady. Get out of here, brother. Get out of here.
You made Jim Irsay's list and Peyton didn't. Are you proud of yourself, Tom?
Just get out of here. We don't need you. But Drake, I think the whole thing with the Commanders, we did an episode on it, saying that if the Commanders did actually try to reach out to Andrew Luck, how stupid it was. But it is. I'm actually good to. It is good to know that the Commanders weren't that dumb and that's slimy to try to reach out to Andrew Luck to join their team.
Well, and it makes sense. Dan Snyder's up to his knees in legal stuff right now, so I don't think that he really even has the time to do that. So I guess that it makes sense. But no, hey, at the end of the day, it's just good to know that Andrew Luck is just being left alone. Right. Honestly, just leave the guy alone and let him enjoy his retirement.
Right. Tom Brady says, "Nah, I'm much better than Peyton. I always beat him." I mean, when you look at those,
always.
I think head to head, Peyton Manning has a better record against Tom Brady in the AFC Conference Championships. But you might want to go back and look at those because I think you'll sheriff had your number in the AFC Championship game. So people forget, including Tom Brady forgets. But last thing we're going to talk about today is that OTAs officially start for the Indianapolis Colts tomorrow, where everybody will be in the building. Finally, get 11 on 11. No pads. That won't happen until mandatory mini camp, but we are going to get some offense versus defense for the first time, so it's going to be fun. I think the first one open to the media is actually on Thursday. We might see clips from the Colts here and there, but as Logan Schmidt coming in here, Tom 2-3 versus Peyton in the playoffs, so hey, Tom Brady, you might want to check yourself there, buddy. But yeah, it's fun. The Colts entering the third and final phase of the offseason program, and we're going to get to see Anthony Richardson going up against a live, in air quotes, a live defense when it's just kind of 11-11, no pads, but it will be nice to see him finally get some action against the starters on defense.
Well, and this is what everybody's been waiting for, is to see him, in at least a little bit of live action. So it'll be a lot of fun to see him and Josh Downs, and if they've meshed really well, and then to see what Evan Hull is going to be a part. What's he going to look like, and of course, without going down the list, a bunch of amazing defensive rookies too. So OTAs are finally starting. Get to see these guys in a little bit of live action.
Right. It's exciting. I mean, we're finally starting to see some more Colts football before they break for the summer, and guys, training camp is on right around the corner, only about 2 months, and the boys in blue will be in pads there in Westfield at Grand Park. And it's going to be a lot of fun to catch all of that action. But that's our show for this evening, guys. Really, really appreciate everybody coming out and supporting us this evening. Once again, a huge shout out to Patrick Wire. Patrick, you are just an absolute goat. All the super chats that you gave this evening. Also wanted to shout out my father, Darwin Moore. Logan, thank you guys for the super chats as well. And thank you all to those that didn't super chat. Thanks for joining in on the fun this evening.
Yes,
a lot of good conversation about Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman and the future of these two stars for the Indianapolis Colts. So if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and follow us on all the things. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, Destin and Shad are going live. And if you can't catch us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So please subscribe to us there and give us a review if you're really enjoying the show. So Drake, I know you've been cooking on the site. What are some things you've got on horseshoehuddle.com that the people can go check out?
So I just released 3 reasons that it's an opinion piece, but I put 3 reasons that the Colts could actually win the AFC South in 2023, and then 5 games where Anthony Richardson can truly shine in front of millions of people.
Awesome. And this week I am going to be covering OTAs and getting all of the buzz coming out on West 56th Street. Going to be talking to multiple people within the Colts organization. Multiple players and coaches are expected to speak this week, and you can be sure to find all of their comments and all the analysis on what they've had to say on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we will be back Thursday night to talk more Colts football with everyone. But until then, everyone, be safe and enjoy your week.